Good morning. My name is Ron Clement. I'm the president of the Resident Council, and we are here once again for a presentation by one of the John Knox associates. And of course, we are not having our Resident Council meetings because of COVID-19, so this is the replacement. Today we have Todd Hollander, who was the Director of Dining Services, and he did speak to Resident Council, I think, earlier this year, late last year, I'm not sure which. Today it's going to be a little different because he's going to be talking about how dining services has had to adjust and done so very well, how dining services has adjusted with the COVID-19 situation where you're not waiting on people at tables, rather you're doing curbside service and a lot of other stuff. And I will turn it over to Todd.
Well, thank you. Thank you for inviting me to be here. It sure has changed with COVID. We have been able to keep all the restaurants open and offer variety. Fireside, of course, is just serving assisted living now, and we'll get to that in just a minute, Ron.
Sure.
But, you know, it's really a changed world. When you go from waiting on tables and having that connection with residents to curbside delivery and carry out, it really changes the perspective and changes the service standards that we can have. Cost changes. With all the to-go supplies, it's increased pricing. Having the staff bag everything individually takes more time, more precision. I know that a lot of mistakes have happened where we'll forget the ketchup packets or forget a fruit. I know that you've got caught up in that a couple of times at one of the restaurants. It's just so much harder when things get bagged and go through different hands, and then there's one of three different places those bags will go. Either curbside, or we're bringing it up to the apartment if it's attached to the restaurant, or we're waiting for the person to come down and pick up that bag from the host stand, and making sure it gets to the right place and the right items. We're double and triple checking that, but it's so much harder to make sure we have everything, and then once it's gone, and it's really hard to correct. So please be patient with us. Let us know when those mistakes happen, and we'll do our best to correct it. You know, some of the things that may stay after COVID, there are some definite positives that have happened.
Okay.
One of the positives is we're really considering keeping curbside as an option. That was never a service we offered before, and we're looking at Courtyard and Stories as offering curbside after COVID once we find our post-COVID normal. One of the other differences is home meal delivery has expanded their menu. Used to be Fireside had their limited grill menu and one or two of the specials along with half of Courtyard's menu. Now you have the full Stories menu. You have Metropolitan items available during Metropolitan nights and half of Courtyard, so we've been able to expand the service. Now granted, some people really miss Fireside's menu. We miss it too, but it was really an important move for us to make. The main reason why we switched away from having delivery over at Fireside is I knew it was important to keep the staff at one department and to keep the contact limited to the number of residents. With Fireside doing home meal delivery, they were contacting all the residents in assisted living as well as all the residents in independent living, and that was a lot of interaction and a lot of opportunity for this pandemic to spread into both levels of care. Unfortunately, because of the nursing shortages and how we staff nursing, we've seen that issue where nursing that have worked in multiple areas of the skilled or assisted living have unfortunately brought a little bit of that virus to the different areas within those two. But we've been able, for the most part, to be able to keep it out of the residents of IL because we've limited some of those contact points, and that's been critical. And we're doing a lot better than most communities out there, and yes. I'm proud to say.
Yes. Okay.
Let's see what else. Those are some of the things that are going on. Let me look at my notes real quick. You know, one of the things I mentioned briefly was the engagement of the residents, not being able to come down to the restaurants, and that's something we really miss.
Yeah.
The managers at Places, Courtyard, and Meadows got together, and really Courtyard went ahead and got with Life Enrichment, and we're going to have a Zoom food group meeting coming up on November 18th. So if you're interested in participating, please go ahead and look at the Village Voice. It's at 2:30, and there'll be instructions on how to get your Zoom link so you can join us for a virtual discussion. We'll have representatives from Lakeside, Courtyard, Places, and Meadows there to basically Zoom with you, have some of that interaction, talk about some of the specials that they have coming up, talk about holiday meals, the menus. Courtyard changed their menu during the pandemic, so did Places. Stories adapted and changed some of their items as well. So we'll continue talking about that with you on November 18th, and we'll have an opportunity to kind of hear some of your concerns. I know there's been comments about wanting Places to deliver, for instance. Mm-hmm. But I'll tell you, our sales and our traffic has not really gone down a lot. Pre-COVID, we were serving somewhere between 800 and 1,200 meals a day. And right now we're serving still between 600 and 700. And when you take in consideration that it's all carryout, that it's a huge undertaking that our restaurants have really been able to step up and offer a wide variety of items and menus. But this November 18th Zoom call will be great to kind of reconnect, give an opportunity for the residents to let us know some of the challenges. Some of the natural challenges we have is keeping food warm. We're doing our best guess of estimating when to come by, whether it's curbside or pickup or delivery, and keeping food warm from the kitchen to the concierge desk to the car to your home is a huge challenge. There are some suggestions though. If you have a fried food or a quesadilla, wonderful quesadilla from Stories, put that in your oven instead of using your microwave. That will help kind of crisp it up. If you put your oven at a lower temperature, like 200, and let it warm a little bit longer, it will nicely warm and get a little bit crisp, or you can even go a little bit higher to 300 or 350. Just keep an eye on it so you don't burn it. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the items you can do that. Some of the fresh vegetables that we offer and even some of the pasta dishes and some of those items, you can go ahead and put in a saucepan and just kind of reheat it and fry it up. Or saute it up a little bit more, and that will add some nice crisp to it. Again, you don't need to go too long because you're just reheating it. Mm-hmm. If you like using your microwave, that's still okay to do. One of the tricks I've learned with microwave is try and keep the center of the plate empty. So you put the food on the outside rim of the plate, okay, and then your food tends to warm a little bit more evenly. If you have something that has some sauce in it, add just a little bit of water. Probably I'd say about a quarter cup or less of water to that, and that will also help heat up the food a little bit and add some of that moisture back in. Okay. Because microwaves tend to dry it out a little bit. All right. Some of the other questions we've had is about all of our to-go packaging and what to do. The black packaging is recyclable and you can reuse that. The paper boxes are compostable. We've done our best to try and be environmentally friendly during all of this, except it is truly a challenge. Right. All of our food distributors are having all kinds of shortages. Items are being subbed out, and we never know what we're going to get on the truck. If we've ordered this type of container, sometimes we get that type of container. Okay. So we've had some of those sourcing issues and challenges as well. So we're trying to deal with all of that. So again, we apologize for the many different varieties of packaging. We have tried to stay away from styrofoam as much as possible, even though the styrofoam we use comes from recycled styrofoam, so at least it's a double-use product. Okay. Staffing has been a challenge. Fortunately, we haven't had to lay anyone off. Everyone has been able to get the hours that they've wanted and maintain their schedules that they've wanted. So that's been great. We have lost some staff because they've been concerned, or maybe they live with their grandparents or someone that may be at risk and they've wanted to take some time off. Certainly understandable, and we've allowed that to happen. Some of that staff has come back as well. With everyone in our economic environment right now, retail environment, really looking for employees. People are paying a lot more out there, and that's been hard to compete with.
Yeah.
Hobby Lobby, for instance, is paying $17 an hour to be an employee there. That's really hard for us to compete with.
Yeah.
And the way they're able to do it is they just don't schedule as many cashiers or as many people to work the floor. So if you have gone out with your face covering, I hope, you should always have your face covering on. If you do go out to some of the retail stores, you notice that there is less staff within their building, because by having less staff, that allows them to allow more shoppers in. That doesn't work for us. You need more people to help do the carryout that we're doing, and therefore we can't increase our wages to compete with that. So that has been a challenge for us, and we've had a little bit of turnover at all the restaurants because some of the younger staff, that this isn't their career, they're going out and going where the money is, which is where some of the retail operations out there, the Hobby Lobbies, the Walmarts, Targets, they can pay a lot more than what we can pay because they've cut their staff load and what they're typically scheduling.
Otherwise, I think we're fairly competitive in terms of pay.
Oh, we absolutely are.
Okay.
Yes. Our servers actually right now during this time are making $10 an hour. And our cooks and hosts and the food server assistants are all within that $14 to $15 range. Some a little bit more if they're a little bit higher up in experience and leadership. And then the servers that are making that $10 an hour get tips, of course. Thank you very much. Tips are never expected and always appreciated. But that really helps kind of supplement a little bit that wage that they would be normally making if they were waiting the tables.
Okay.
So we are competitive, but we're not quite to where the retail or to where some of those retail stores can be. And our benefit package, of course, blows everyone else away.
Yes.
But when you're a college student or a high school student, that really doesn't add a lot of gusto.
Yeah, that's true. Okay.
Yeah. So, any other questions or anything I can address for you?
Well, okay, I'm standing here listening to everything you've said and how things have changed, and it really is very complex, and I think things have gone very well with the restaurants and so forth. Yeah. The big question I have for you is, are you still having fun?
Are we still having fun? I'll tell you, like most of the people I talk to, I think we have our ups and downs.
Okay.
I know as a whole, we really miss the interaction.
Sure.
That's why I'm here.
Yep.
When I was working at Jose Peppers, you'd have 45 minutes to get to know someone.
Yeah.
We've had a number of residents move in, and we haven't been able to meet them yet or see them without a face covering. And that's really hard because one of the great benefits here is really making those relationships last.
Yep.
And really connecting on a daily basis with our technically guests, but what we really consider friends.
Yep.
So yes, we are still having fun. We're being creative. We have some good ideas that are coming up for the holidays. Meadows is planning on offering a whole Thanksgiving dinner that you can reheat whenever you want.
Okay.
And we have some wonderful Thanksgiving specials and that kind of thing coming up. But we are still having fun, still being creative.
Good.
Meadows is having a competition amongst their cook staff to come up with a new flavored butter to go with the Metropolitan menu. To get away from the pear preserved butter that we serve, we're coming up with a new one. So we are having inter-cook competitions and keeping things exciting for them, and always trying to raise that bar. So yes, we're definitely having fun.
That's great. Yeah, and I was kind of asking that as sort of a joke, but also it's important to enjoy what you're doing, and the interaction I'm sure that's important for most of the residents too. We miss sitting at Lakeside, not just with our friends, but talking with Rhoda and the staff, and it's always been a good time.
It's always good camaraderie. We get small snippets now, 5-10 minute interactions. It's been fun watching, seeing what everyone's driving, at curbside, because we don't typically see that, but it's interesting seeing who's the resident driving the Lamborghini. And so far we haven't seen one, but it's out there somewhere.
So I sometimes wonder if when I drive up in my white Subaru Legacy, if they say, "Uh-oh, it's him again.
No, what really gets interesting is when someone says they have a red SUV and then we have 3 to-go bags for red SUVs. Which one is it?
No. Okay. Now, in terms of staffing, you're about where you were before the pandemic. Some new people, but basically, even though things have changed, it hasn't allowed you to decrease the staff.
No, absolutely. We've been able to keep our staffing the same, and our turnover rate or our retention rate is always very important to us to make sure that our employees stay. And our retention rate is actually a little bit better than what it was last year,
Okay.
Which is good. But we have seen that little influx of turnover that we really weren't expecting due to those other jobs, as I mentioned. But as a whole, we're right where we should be.
Okay. I was interested, and of course, I didn't realize you were going to get into the, basically some of the things about using a microwave or using the oven and reheating. That most of us don't know those things. The one thing I know is Pat and I learned a long time ago. Basically, don't try to reheat pizza in the microwave.
No.
Use the conventional oven and put it in for 6 minutes at 350, and that's it.
Yep, that's all you need to do.
Yeah, otherwise it's damp. It's yeah. But I like the idea of spreading things out and leaving the middle open, putting in a little bit of water, maybe.
Yes.
I thought you were going to start getting into menus for us. Anyway, now I know that. Let's see. We had Brian Opoka in here last month, and he was talking about, I guess, regular meetings. I think of management talking about how things are going, where they're going, what's changing. Are you in on those kinds of meetings?
I am in some of those meetings.
Okay.
Of course, our dining team takes care of all the banquet spaces.
Okay.
And that question has come up a lot on when residents can congregate outside of those that live together in the same dwelling. We really don't know yet. I know out in the county they've loosened up to allow 100 people, but that doesn't apply to us because we're a senior living facility. Right. With skilled and assisted living, and we're a high-risk population. So that doesn't apply to us. And I know that we've submitted a couple suggestions to the county to allow us to open that up. As soon as we're able to allow residents to move between the buildings freely, we'll be able to open up the dining rooms again, at least to same households. Okay. At a table. Okay. And that's what I'm really hoping for. It's way too much for us to manage the dining room for the apartment buildings that are connected to the dining room, along with still offering services for carryout, delivery, and curbside. Okay. We just can't do it all. Okay. With the staff that we have, with the skills that we have, it's just not practical. Right. So we're waiting until residents can move between the apartment buildings and move between the restaurants freely before we open up the dining rooms. Okay. Have you had any not outbreaks for crying out loud, but any associates in dining services who have gotten the virus? We have, okay. Unfortunately. Just this last week, one of the restaurants had, Brian reported it in e-connections, which is always very important to keep up on. Okay. Read your e-connections, and if you're not on that email, there's instructions in the Village Voice on who to contact to get on that mailing list. It's very important. We did have a couple people that tested positive in one restaurant. We caught it early, and we contact traced within the staff. It was one person had very limited resident contact. The others did not have resident contact at all, and everyone is back to work and doing well now. Okay, good. Mm-hmm. I was talking to Brian Opoka last month, and I told him that my wife and I both agree that John Knox has been a very well-controlled, in a good way, environment. And if John Knox is such a good example of how social distancing and wearing masks can work well. Absolutely. And, yeah. I'll tell you, my parents live in a Brookdale community in St. Louis, okay. And they've had a different experience. There's been times where they're in independent living. Mm-hmm. Assisted living is on the first floor, and it's a four-story building. There's been times where independent living residents have been sequestered or quarantined in their apartment
Okay.
For up to a week. Not because they've had any contact, but just because. There's been times where, especially at the beginning of the pandemic, and still to this day, if my parents go out to my sister's home or my brother's home, when they come back, they have to quarantine for 14 days in their apartment.
Wow.
So it's a little bit different than around here.
Right.
You know, they encourage face coverings just like we do, but they're a little bit more strict on keeping things kind of tight and
Right.
keeping the residents in. Their dining room had opened up, was planning on opening up a couple different times, and it would open up for one day, and then there would be a case that popped
Right.
up, so they shut
Boom.
it down.
Yep.
And that's the other thing that Brian, Maria, and the rest of the COVID team is really wanting to make sure that we're not jump starting anything too early where we can offer all of this and then we have to shut it down really quick, because that's not good
That's
either.
not good. No, that's not good.
We want to make sure we're ready, and as soon as we're allowed to, and as soon as we feel comfortable with
Yeah.
where the levels are, I mean, we're chomping at the bit for sure to get
And the
everything
residents,
open back
you know,
up.
the residents we're not being locked down like you were describing in your parents' place in St. Louis. We've got a lot of freedom. We just have to be careful and follow the rules, and things will work. And I have an idea when it'll all open up and we'll be able to go sit in restaurants again and so forth. The Resident Council's Executive Committee is just now starting to meet on Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
And once we get that going, and then the committees start meeting on Zoom, that's all going, that's when we'll open up. Anyway, we're hoping it works well.
Yeah, and I know, you know, face coverings for our staff and temperature checks and all of the screens that we're typically doing are probably going to be staying well beyond us being
Yeah.
able to kind of open up some of those.
That would be great.
Some of that traffic and servicing. So those are some of the things that will probably stay in place.
Yep. I think things are under very good control, and dining services is just rolling along. Pat and I are very pleased with our experience.
Thank you. I know that there's been some hiccups and some ups and downs, and everyone has an opinion, because food is one of the most important things there is.
That's true.
And we're doing our best. Just continue. Please let us know when we do make mistakes so we have an opportunity to correct them. Certainly not our intent. We want to keep the variety and the options and the services open as much as we can.
Sounds very good. I'm glad you could be with us here today.
Thank you.
I'm glad you covered all the topics you covered, and Todd and I always enjoy interacting with each other. You could probably see that. So I'm glad he was here. Next month, we have a treat for you. We will have John Varvero here, and almost all of you know John and his wonderful voice. He will give us basically a holiday concert for 30 minutes. And I called him yesterday, and he was glad to hear from me, because he was going to do a holiday concert originally over at the Pavilion. And of course, he can't do that. So he'll do it here in front of the camera, and I'm sure it will be wonderful music. The man has a terrific voice, and we all enjoy him. Thank you very much.
Thank you.